Hello, this is Lisa Harrison, and today I'm speaking with Ashwin Farinacci. It is, for me at least, Monday, the 28th of May. And welcome, Ashwin.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for making yourself available, and I know that you are new to this. This is your second interview, uh, but this is an interesting story, and I was really looking forward to speaking with you. That I just wanted to, before we even go into what your story is and what has happened to you recently, you had a pretty extraordinary experience March 27 of this year, so it's still very ripe for you. This is still very new.
hmm
But prior to that experience, I wanted to ask you who you were in terms of what religious, if any, spiritual, if any, uh, belief, doctrine, school you were brought up in, or had investigated yourself, and what your knowledge was around 2012 in particular.
Well, again, I want to thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be able to speak with you and speak with your audience. The thing that really makes my story unique, I think, isn't the experience itself per se, because I think that it's something that is happening more and more rapidly on this earth. It's who I was before, because the person I was before would never even have a clue as to begin to imagine the realities that are existing today. I was a person that was very much into sports. I lived sports. I died sports. Watching it and playing it, and very much in what we call the matrix, as far as your everyday average person that doesn't think too highly of the beauty of the universe, or think too highly of who we are as people. I was, the person that would laugh, that would mock, that would
Were you even
dis.
aware there was a Matrix that you were in?
Well, I've seen the movie,
Hmm.
but as far as the terminology of Matrix, if someone brought it up, I would have just said two words: Keanu and Reeves. Other than that, I didn't have much more to say about it. So this change in my life from point A to where I am today is probably what is so profound for me personally. The experience in it of itself is something that uh, is only profound from that perspective. I don't think that you know other people that have had similar experiences will think that it's something too out of the ordinary or too incredible or unbelievable, because I think that all around the world people are having similar experiences. But I'm glad you asked that question, because I think that's what really makes this so unique. Because I would have just thought a person talking about the things that we're going to talk about today is either a schizophrenic individual, a charlatan, a person who wants attention. I wouldn't have given them that credibility. Because it was too out of the ordinary for me. I wouldn't have thought that such a thing could actually happen. My goal in life prior to this was to study sports journalism, not because I wanted to be in front of the camera or because I wanted to talk, on the radio, but because I thought that that would be a way for me to get into the sports franchise arena through the back door as maybe a general manager or assistant general manager. So it's really almost a 180. What we're going to discuss today has nothing to do with what really I wanted to give my life for, which was to be in the business of sports behind the scenes, working, as a scouter or a assistant general manager. That was my goal. So that's really the thing that makes it so crazy, in my opinion.
So, is it fair to say that your knowledge of 2012 didn't go much past a Hollywood blockbuster?
You're exactly right.
Okay.
I mean, I knew that there was something going on there. I knew that there was such a thing as 2012. I remember even back in the MySpace days, when I had a MySpace, people would post things, or now on Facebook and Twitter. But really, I would just see things here or there, or just my biggest experience was watching that movie, which I thought was a pretty exciting, fun movie. And of course, leaving the cinema, you hear people talking about it, and but that's really the extent that I had knowledge of, other than pretty much what your everyday average person would have. And
You mentioned that.
nothing.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Well, you just mentioned that if anybody brought up some of these subjects that we're going to talk about today, you would think they were schizophrenic. So let's get this out of the way. No mental illness in your history or in your family?
Well, as I said last time, a crazy person doesn't know that they're crazy. I think I'm not crazy, but then again, if I were, I wouldn't be the person to ask. But nothing in my family, no schizophrenia, no mental disorder. I never experimented with psychedelic drugs, and if we want to go on that subject a little later, we can. But I've never done any of that. I have had some alcohol now and then, but pretty much that's about it.
You know, for somebody who, I'm being reminded of David Icke, because what I'm thinking is for somebody who has had such a profound, life-changing spiritual experience, you seem pretty grounded and somewhat, together, and you're articulate. Because I was remembering David Icke when he had his experience back in
Mhm.
1990 or whatever. It took him months to, even be able to speak about it coherently. And he famously, which you may have seen, went on the Wogan show, a television show in England at the time, and he came off as a lunatic, and he knows he did. But you just seem to be really you seem to be really grounded about it all.
Well, I have had that gentleman's name come to my attention recently. And did you say that his experience, his first awakening was in the early 90s?
1990, I believe. Yeah,
I think that's the reason why it may have taken a little bit longer because I think right now we're seeing a hyperdrive, a hypermotion, particularly with people of a little bit younger generation. I think that we're seeing a awakening all around the world
mm.
that is quite unusual. And I think the reason isn't because of me being able to handle it better, because I don't think that had this happened to me then, I would have been able to keep grounded and try to understand it. I think that it's the time shift, and it's what's happening on the planet today that makes it a little bit easier for someone who has an awakening to really handle it and get a better grasp on things. That's how I see it.
I think that's really well said and a really good point. The energies now on the planet compared to 1990, I mean, it's completely different.
Hmm.
And you're right. It's the younger generation. Can I actually ask how old you are? Do you mind
I'm
telling?
27. I'm
27.
27.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you consider me young, but I still feel like I'm, 1918. So I
that's all
don't, I
right. We all
definitely.
do.
But yeah, and I think that that's a really important point to emphasize, Lisa. It's this time that we're living in is extremely beautiful, I think, if and only if you can really take it into the strides of what it is. I mean, if you live on this planet right now without any illumination and any awareness, I think it's actually the opposite of beautiful. I think it's very fearful and a very terrible place to be if you don't have illuminated vision. I mean, I don't know what's going on in Australia. You can probably enlighten me, but here in America, we have, homelessness on the rise. We have people that are losing their work, losing their homes, and now they're in the process of losing their minds because that's all that they have left to lose. And this time that we're in, I think, can be either one of two things. You can either see it from a larger perspective, a bigger picture, or you can look at it from that tiny minimalistic standpoint and look at it from the standpoint of your 2 feet, your 2 legs, and your head, and that's all you are. Nothing more than that body, nothing more than your life, nothing more than just Lisa Harrison, or in my case, nothing more than just Ashwin Farinacci. They could be tough times. They could be a little scary, especially with all the things going on in the world. But like I said, that's from the perspective, and we go back to the thing we talked about earlier, that's from the perspective of the Matrix.
Mm.
It's a very scary, confusing time from that particular perspective. But if a person can be who they truly are, or at least start to tap into who they truly are, which is really where it begins, they realize that they are much more than just the Lisa M. Harrison, or much more than just the Ashwin Farinacci. They are connected to something much more profound. So these things that we see going on a daily basis become more primitive, and I'm not going to use the word less important because they are still real elements of pain and suffering going on. But you can see them from an aerial perspective, and the fear element of what's going on goes away.
Yes, and it does seem that, at least for me lately, there's a process of having to integrate the new energies is almost it's
Yes,
daily.
exactly. That integration process is has been my personal challenge over the last couple months, and that integration process, I believe you're referring to kind of the jumping back and forth from one perspective to the other. Is that correct?
That and a physical, visceral energy that, um, how can I put this? It's like having to be recalibrated every day.
Yes, yes. And are you finding it tougher and tougher to do every day or easier and easier?
Um, I'm finding it different each day because I think my ability to do it is getting better and better each day.
Hmm.
But the
Hmm.
energies at the same time are amping up each day. So it's changing but growing, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And that's the struggle that I see many of us facing. It's that need to have to remind oneself every day. And it can be a challenge when you're jumping from one perspective to the other. But I submit to you that if you stay from the mindset of that aerial perspective, that ancient wisdom that we all have, and you let the day-to-day stuff just be on autopilot, life can be so much more profound and so much more beautiful because you can see so much more. And therefore, if you have a wider perspective, the beauty that was there before that you simply couldn't see because your window was so minimalistic, you can now see. So I think at the core, everyone does have a tremendous beauty in their day-to-day life. I think that everyone does have that ability to see the beauty. I just think, unfortunately, because of a combination of them being lied to, number one, for all of their lives, and not believing in themselves, number two, their window of sight is so small that they have to either, in your case, and this is a wonderful thing that you do, you snap out of it every day, and I applaud that. And unfortunately, some people don't have that ability to do that. They stay from that one dimensional, one line vision, and it's going to be tough for them. It really will be tough for them, especially during the coming times, because as I mentioned earlier, people are losing their jobs, people are losing their families, people are losing their homes, and now they're in the process of losing their minds. And
I can say that the same thing is happening here, and I imagine it's happening pretty much everywhere.
mhm, yes, absolutely. And it's a global movement. I know that it's really hit the world on a profound level. And you have to understand, why is this happening all at once so rapidly, and why are people scrambling just to keep their head above water? And we're not just talking financially. I'm not a person to talk about the financial Federal Reserve System or any of those things. This is something from my perspective that's happening on a cosmic level first. And since the negative energy is happening on a cosmic level, therefore this dimension has to manifest that same energy on the three-dimensional level that we're in. So if we have negative things happening on the cosmic level, how are we going to perceive that? What is the most valuable thing that we as a mass humans believe in? Well, human beings on this planet judge happiness or judge, uh, pleasure or displeasure based on monetary value. So instantly, because human beings already put so much value mentally and energetically into money, the first thing that's going to collapse, of course, is money. Because cosmically, there's a negative energy, so this universe interprets it the way that it sees. So this dimension, since it sees losing money as the most negative thing collectively, maybe not me, maybe not you, maybe not your listeners, I'm sure they can see things larger than that, but collectively, since humans place so much value on money, that's why it's manifesting itself in the way that it is today. So in order for even that aspect to be cleared up, there has to be a cosmic connection. That's how I see it.
One of the ways in which I see that coming apart is people are starting to recognize and really not even mentally recognize, but really feel in their being that it's all based on competition. It's all based on comparison is probably the better word, because
Mm-hmm.
you cannot be rich unless somebody else is poor to compare yourself
Mm-hmm.
with. And for the first time, I'm seeing people who have what's the word, strove all their life um, for that financial uh, superiority
Mm-hmm.
to start to get that, okay, in order for me to feel superior financially, to feel successful financially, it means others have to be poor and
Mm.
others have to
Mm.
fail. And for the
Mm-hmm.
first time, that's not good enough.
Mm-hmm. And it's so profound that you bring that up because I think for a long time humans have had that mindset that if I want to, step up on the ladder, automatically that means that I have to stomp on someone under me. Otherwise, if I don't stomp on someone else or smash someone else or destroy someone else, I can't get ahead.
Well, we've
And
also been told that there's only so many rungs on the ladder and so many places at the top.
absolutely, there's a limited spot at the top. The people at the top have this club, and it's very difficult to get inside of that club. It's an exclusive club, and if you want a shot, now I can't guarantee you that you'll make it, but if you just want that shot of maybe getting to that exclusive VIP lounge, you're gonna have to stomp on as many people as you can. You're gonna smash as many people as you can, manipulate, lie, deceive as many people as you can. So maybe one day you can go inside of that exclusive club. And that's what the motivation for most people is. They have this mindset of if I stomp on enough people, I'll have what they believe to be freedom because they believe having that mansion or having that car or having whatever it is that in their particular fantasy mind they believe is freedom would be freedom, or having fame or being a superstar on TV. These are all just ways for a person to chase something that is not actually freedom. So I think that that's the biggest deception that people have bought into, is the notion that first of all going there means you're going to be free, and second of all to even get to there it just means you have to do evil deeds and evil actions. the
Mm.
thing that people the thing that I think people don't really realize when they think that way is if they want to stomp on me to get ahead, from the cosmic perspective they're stomping on themselves.
Yes.
So that's why I have to kind of just do exactly what you just did and just kind of chuckle, because I can't look at them as anything else other than victims of their own delusion. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're going to stomp on me, what you don't realize is you're stomping on a part of yourself. So that's really the fundamental truth that I see.
I've got one more question for you before we move on to the actual experience that you had in March.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, at the time you were living at home with your parents and
Mm-hmm.
possibly siblings. I don't know if you have any.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still there?
Well, the relationship that has happened with my family is something that has probably been the most difficult thing for me to deal with. They just think that I lost it. They
Well,
they
that's what I
don't
was going to
even know.
ask you. How have they coped? Yeah.
Yeah, they basically just think that I've kind of lost it. That I have gone into drugs. That I have, just that they're worried. They're confused. They're trying to get me to go to various doctors, and just to calm them down and let them know that I don't think there's anything to be worried about. I did follow through. I did do that, and I thought that things would be better if I, speak to them or do some of the things they asked. But really, that's been the one aspect that is still keeping me grounded in this dimensional realm. It's probably the most difficult thing to just let go of, and it's been a battle, and I have not been able to win that battle yet because I'm still very much connected emotionally, mentally on this realm, and that's the last thing that I need to really let go of if I want to truly operate on that, what I call the ancient realm. But it's been a very uh, large struggle, a very painful struggle, because there's nothing worse than seeing the ones you love look at you like you've gone mad. And it's not that
I
I'm
know that
worried that
feeling. Don't worry.
and the thing that makes it so strange is, Ashwin has a reputation in the family of being the normal kid. Ashwin is not the guy that talks about this stuff. Ashwin will drive the family to a baseball game and, order a few hot dogs and enjoy the show. So
Ashwin was
that's
voted least likely.
yes, exactly, Lisa. Ashwin is, the most average person you're going to meet in your life. I mean, uh, I think if there was an award for being normal, I would have probably won it. So that's probably why they're so worried. But I've tried to wash down the experience as much as I can when I speak to them, because I don't want to hit them at once with everything. So that's probably been the best way for me to do it, is kind of give it to them in bits and pieces. And since I do love my family, I do want them to have a mindset of illumination, especially since now I know what's going to come. I don't want to just scare them off. I want to still give them what they think is Ashwin, so therefore I can use their perspective of what I should be as a way to kind of guide them, even though they may not specifically ask to be guided, guide them to a little bit more truth about themselves. And that's probably the biggest thing on my plate right now, is dealing with my family. The biggest thing. Friends, don't even get me started on friends. People who I thought were my friends are making fun of me. They're laughing at me. They're mocking me. People who I've been friends with for years, who I expected loyalty from, who I expected understanding from, have basically in a matter of 2 months degraded me to just a joke that they'll say at a bar, which has probably been the most surprising thing. So
Do you have
yeah, it's been,
anybody? Do you have anybody from your life prior to March who's still there and supportive?
I still have my extended family, my cousins who are helping me. I have a cousin in New York who's been very helpful, and it's not as if my family has abandoned me and they've disowned me. They're just very worried and concerned. So it's harder for me than it is for them. But there've been a lot of new people that have came into my life that I'm so grateful for, and every day there's new people who are coming into this experience with me, and that's probably the thing that's been most exciting.
Yep.
I can afford losing friends that will degrade you and just mock you if it means I'm going to gain a friend that has understanding and is open-minded enough to be there and support me. So, you win some and you lose some. In this case, I think that the ones that I won are profoundly more important than the ones that I lost.
The ones that you lost will come back. You know,
I hope so. I hope so,
and
because I
when
still,
stuff starts to happen to them and they start to feel it, they'll know who to turn to.
well, exactly. And I'm not going to turn my back on any of my friends or any of my family. And, like you said, when things do start to make sense to them, they'll know who to call and who to come to, because I've been there, I've gone through it, and I'm still dealing with it today. I still haven't figured it out 100%. I'm still, just in the process. And I'll be there for them with love, even though my friends mocked me and ridiculed me. And, I mean, even probably the hardest thing for me to accept is really how much betrayal exists in the the essence of humans that are operating in the matrix. I mean, they just don't have that sense of empathy or understanding for each other that I thought they did.
They're
Uh,
operating out of fear. They don't want what you're saying to be true.
I think you said it better than I could have ever said it. They're operating out of fear, and they don't want what I'm saying to be true. And I think that the most shocking thing for me to accept out of this experience was the fact that people will believe what they want to believe. I mean, if a person wants to believe that the sky is pink, even if you take him outside of the house and say, look, George, you see what I'm pointing to up there with my finger? That's a blue sky. And there's no denying that that sky that I'm seeing is a blue sky. They'll look at me right in the eye and say, Ashwin, the sky is pink. You've gone insane. You're a madman. I'm going to call the doctor. I'm going to call someone to take care of you. You've gone schizophrenic. You need to take medication. The sky is pink. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, how do I even react? And that's probably the toughest thing to deal with, is that understanding that it's such a challenge to try to take people away from that. But again, that's why I appreciate you, Lisa, and I appreciate what you do with this radio program, and I appreciate your audience, because I think that the only hope that really is left is based on you, people like you, and people listening to this program, and because it's a very small population when you look at it on the global spectrum of things that really are going to contribute to the energy to make this awakening a possibility.
It was brought to my attention recently that we only need 3%.
That's it. That's all you need. You just need a small population. And if we want to look at it from a historical, secular standpoint, for those that are still in the matrix who want me to put it in a perspective that they could understand. In America, there was a revolution here, and less than 1% of the populace actually fought in that revolution, which ended up freeing the whole nation. Now, granted, that freedom lasted a very short time, and it's gone now. But for a short period of time, there was a country that was free, and it was only that way because 1% of the populace, a small fraction, decided to fight for the greater good. And we are in that fight. It's a spiritual fight. It's a fight that we have to engage in on a cosmic level, cosmically. And all we need is a small populace to tune in and change the scope of things, and the change that can happen on the planet is not only real, but will happen if and only if people like you, Lisa, stay on the path you're on. People that are listening to your program, stay on the path that they're on, continue listening, continue being part of this movement. I think that that's really the only hope we have, is people that are operating from that spectrum right now.
Let's move into the experience itself. And I know that you've given a very detailed account of it in the past. So if people want to get more detail, they can go and have a look at some of those previous things that you've done. But try to give the elevator speak version of what happened on March 27 of this year, 2012.
Well, like you mentioned, I've spoken about this multiple times. I think if people want to get a specific, detailed experience, they should just search Ashwin Farinacci. I don't have a website. I don't have a homepage. I don't have anything like that. But there's other people that have put stuff online, so you guys can probably look into that. And there's a few videos where I go into detail. But to just give you the elevator experience. I was at home, online, doing what I would normally do, watching a few music videos, or had my headphones on, and pardon me, and doing what I would normally do, nothing too out of the ordinary. And at approximately right past about 1:10 a.m., there was a very peculiar feeling that I got, and it wasn't something that slowly came and took a few minutes and I was like, okay, what's this feeling? It was something that hit me instantly. It was a spontaneous event, and it hit me out of nowhere. And even though this is the beginning part of my story, I want to emphasize something about that beginning part. Is when that feeling struck me out of nowhere, I did not feel as though it was a external strike. In other words, I don't feel as though something from outside came within. I feel quite the opposite. I feel as though something that was inside of me started to, and I've had a really tough time finding the right word, but the best word that I found to describe it was awaken. I found that something that was inside of me rose and came to be lucid. It wasn't something externally that took control of me, or, many people that I've shared the story with instantly, they say, well, Ashwin, sounds to me like a demon possessed you. You're demonic. This is not normal. You shouldn't have been taken under control. So I'm going to write you off, and everything you say as being, the demon's work and demonic. And I have a issue with that mindset because I was the person that had the experience. So I think I would know a little bit better. And this was not a external negative, hostile event. This was uh, beyond just being beautiful and life changing. It was a internal event. It was a part
Can
of me
I,
that had.
sorry,
Go ahead.
if I use some sort of new age terms to try and explain this, would you say it was as if your higher self, you connected with your higher self? Is that one way of looking at it?
I would say that that's an accurate way to describe it. And I would go a little bit deeper and say that I connected with my higher ancient self because it wasn't a part of me that felt foreign. It was a part of me that was uh, always there, was there for a long time, was there even before I was born. And
There's another person that I've interviewed who is saying that at this time, what many of us are experiencing is more of us, more of our soul, more the a larger, greater, older part of our soul is stepping into our bodies. And that's
and
why we are going through a lot of the physical changes we are is in order to actually be able to hold it.
I think that that gentleman made a accurate statement. And again, to just go a little deeper on that point, I think not only is it happening more and more, but it's happening faster and faster. And going back to what we said at the beginning of the conversation when we were discussing, um, I believe his name was Mr. Ike's
Hmm.
experience in the early 90s and how it took him several months. And now my experience, which is something that you said has, surprisingly been. I haven't lost my mind, so to speak, even though it's happened recently, is because it's happening quicker and quicker, and the times are such where people are actually dealing with it better and people are handling it better because naturally the ability to accept it is much easier than it was, even if we just go, 20 years back. And that just shows how rapidly we're going headfirst into this age where I think wisdom is going to be something that we'll find on this planet. But consequently, it goes back to the yin and the yang. Even though we're going to have a tremendous amount of wisdom, we are going to have a tremendous amount of ignorance on the other side. That's just my personal opinion. And there will be a massively unbalanced division between uh, humans on this planet.
Hmm. That's something to look forward to, isn't it?
Yeah, so
All right,
definitely
let's get
something
back
to
to
look
that
forward
diet.
to.
So it's like March. It's March 27. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. You're on your computer. You've got your headphones on. Within a moment, you're overwhelmed with this sensation of a greater part of you being switched on and awoken.
Within a moment, Lisa, it happened instantly, and I got the strange feeling that, and there weren't words spoken to me. There was never a voice in my head, or I wasn't hearing any words. It was a feeling, a instinctual feeling, if someone swings a punch at you, you don't get words in your head that say dodge now, there's a fist coming your way. No, you just dodge because you have that instinctual feeling to dodge. When someone throws a fist at your face, you're gonna duck so your face doesn't get hit. That's the best way I've been able to express it on a human realm. I got this instinctual feeling that I had to go to a particular area, and I knew exactly where I had to go.
And it wasn't, can
So,
I just clarify as we go along? It wasn't
mhm,
out of fear that you needed to get out of the house.
I'm glad you brought that up because this has been the one aspect of reaction that has really confused me most because there was nothing about fear, nothing about hostility. There was nothing forceful about my experience. It was all a experience of love, wisdom, and truth. There was no fear, no hostility, no forcefulness whatsoever. And I hate to constantly emphasize that,
Well,
but
just it's just when you use the analogy of an instinctual flinch against
mhm,
a punch, that's
mhm.
an instinctual flinch that we make out of fear and self-protection.
You're right, and that was probably the not a good metaphor, but to say it in a different way, it was something that I felt I had to do, but it wasn't out of fear of getting hit in the head. It was out of chasing something that I think was home. It
Right,
was it was about maybe going to a place where I belong.
right.
So it's tough to really find a proper metaphor to explain it, but I think that's probably the most accurate way I can put it.
Understood.
Now, understanding that there was this feeling and this instinctual um, desire I had, maybe the proper way to say it is a desire to go to a place, and I knew exactly where I had to go. I took off my headphones. People at home were sleeping, and if they heard me leave the house, they probably thought Ashwin's gonna meet up with some friends or go to a bar. Or, they didn't think too much of it. It wasn't that unusual for me to leave at that time. And I didn't put on my shoes. I went literally barefoot inside of my car. I could still function normally. I could still turn on the car. I was still lucid on an earthly realm. And I drove to a place,
Were you still
and
feeling very much in your body at that point?
yes, very much so. I was still in my body. I was extremely lucid, extremely normal. I could still stop when the red light was on. I could
But you just
still.
still had this expanded feeling that there was.
Yes, yes. The feeling that hit instantly was still around during this period of time. It didn't just come for 1 second and leave. Up until the point where I had the out of body experience, which I'll go into later, that feeling was still there, that ancient feeling. And I drove to a place that is called Montage Hotel in Laguna Beach, California. And I parked my car at Montage Hotel in Laguna Beach, California. And this is a hotel basically connected to the beach, and there's a large beach area. It's not just a hotel. There's residential. There's places open for the public. And I parked my car in the public area, and I was just thinking to myself, okay, this feels right. This feels right. Kind of like an inner compass was telling me, okay, now you got to walk over there and you got to go exactly down the stairs because the parking ramp was up above the beach. Down the stairs, and there was a sense of specifically where I had to go. And usually at that time at night, you're not going to have dozens and dozens of people at the beach or in the back of the hotel. You're going to have two or three couples that are out on a date or guests at the hotel that are walking around or even a security guard. You're not going to have 40, 50 people, but you are going to have 5 or 6 people. I'm familiar with the area. There was not a single soul in that area, period. No one was there, which was extremely unusual because even though I wouldn't expect 100 people to be there, you'd see a couple there or employee there, but there was nobody in that area when this event happened. I went and I placed my feet specifically on a portion of the sands of the beach. And I felt as though my feet were in the proper area, and I got this sense of a minor accomplishment when I went there. The experience happened right after this moment when I looked up, and I've tried to describe what I saw, and the best way I could say it was that it was a light, a red light that's light was glowing profoundly, but the light wasn't like a flashlight in the sense that you could see it 50 yards down on another part of the hill. It was all staying inside of the circle. The light was staying inside of the circle.
So there was no
And
beam coming from it.
no, thank you so much, Lisa. Yes, no beam coming from the light. It was internally inside of the circle.
Uh-huh.
And at this stage, I had an experience which now, after I've had this experience, I've come to find out what it is. It was called a out of body experience. And I don't know how familiar you are with that term or if anyone else has had these kinds of things happen to them. But I had what is called a out of body experience in the sense that my body collapsed on the sands and I left my physical realm and I left my body. Now, again, I want to emphasize this point again because there have been a lot of people that have referred to me as a contactee or a abductee or, a man that, went in a UFO. And, I can't control what people want to label this experience as. Everyone can perceive it in their own particular way. But I personally don't really advocate that kind of terminology because I believe that this was a spiritual experience. Physically speaking, I didn't leave the earth. Physically speaking, my body was on the planet, on the beach, in this dimension.
Mm-hmm.
This experience was on a different realm. I don't think that it's accurate to describe me as that. But then again, if people want to put any kind of title they want, I can't control it. But I personally don't really advocate that too much because this was, in my opinion, a spiritual experience, not a physical one.
In my
Anyways,
experience of talking to people too, if they've had that kind of experience, the being that they've spoken to will identify themselves as being of a particular race from a particular place, clearly identify themselves as extraterrestrials. Whereas the person you came into connection with didn't do that, really, did they?
well, they did do that, but it wasn't in the sense that they would shake my hand and say, "Hi, how are you, Ashwin? My name is this, my name is that." What had happened was, as I'm going to explain later, the way that this entity communicated with me was not with words. It was not with any language that we know of Earth. It was through telepathic symbolism. And when he was communicating with me telepathically, there were not visions of past, present, and future given to me like a television or, watching a movie. They weren't clear from that perspective. They were all symbols, nothing but symbolism. And it was a vast range of symbolism that I was getting inside of my mind. And many of these symbols, I knew exactly what he was talking about, even though they were foreign to me, even though I had no idea in the world what kind of strange, meaning these shapes and these sizes would have had I seen them on this realm. On that realm, they made completely perfect sense to me because, they were familiar, they were understandable, they were clear as day. And during the course of this exchange, one of the symbols explained exactly who he was. He was a member of what we refer to on this planet from a secular perspective as an Elohim, a member of the Elohim. And my understanding is, pardon me, my understanding is that this term was also used biblically and historically. There were many different encounters with members of this group, and it's not a uncommon connection to have. It's one that does happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to people in history. But going back to the people who describe themselves as aliens, I did not have this entity describe himself as an extraterrestrial. I didn't have him say through his symbological telepathy that he's a outsider. In fact, quite the contrary. He really sent the impression that he was more like me than I would otherwise have an understanding of. So,
So to just take a step back, you're
mhm,
standing on the beach.
mhm,
Your consciousness leaves your body. Your physical
mhm,
body collapses at that point.
mhm, mhm.
Are you seeing and feeling yourself then drawing into this red light?
Good question. And yes, that's exactly what happened. Um, when I did have my out of body experience, I did not have any senses physically other than my ability to think and my ability to see. Now, even though my body, including my eyeballs, was collapsed on the floor, I could still see as crystal clear as I'm seeing this, little room that I'm in right now.
Did you have a sense
So
of physical form though, in the sense of boundaries?
no boundaries, no physical form. The closest thing that I had, if we want to call it a physical form, was my sight. You take away my sight, and all I was a spaceless consciousness.
Mhm.
But I did have my sight, so that's probably the only way I would describe any sort of boundaries was my ability to see exactly how I see now in a limited perspective. So that's the only sense of boundaries that I carried with me was my limited sight. But other than that, there were no, I couldn't feel my legs, I couldn't feel my arms, literally like a aura, just a aura, a empty piece of consciousness.
Okay.
And as I explained later, with the actual dialogue that occurred, before that happened, when I did go into this red light, the gentleman, as I've described in the past, and I'll explain for those listeners who haven't seen the videos or the other interviews of mine, the gentleman that I saw was a gentleman that had a very average human looking essence about him. The only thing that made him strange, or what we would call unusual, had he just been a person walking on this planet, was the fact that the clothing that he was wearing was such where it was completely, the word is probably transcendent to the skin color of this gentleman. So there was no difference between the color of the clothes and the color of his skin. And if you look at him, you would think either this person is completely naked, but he has no um, genitalia, no hair, or this person is wearing a very tight strapped clothing that is the color of his whole body. So that
You,
would be,
you also described him in the initial um, interview that you did as aesthetically beautiful, like the perfect specimen of a human.
well, I don't have a attraction to
Oh, I'm not
my
insinuating you do.
no, of course, and I just want to emphasize that because because when I call this gentleman beautiful or handsome, I don't want people to think that I'm saying that from a sexual standpoint. I'm saying that from an objective point of view, that the gentleman literally looked as though his structure was carved and perfectly designed. There was nothing abnormal as far as the way that he looked. It was very, very charming, handsome, trustworthy looking facial structure that you would look and you would, just get a real warm feeling from. Like someone that if you meet on a everyday um, level, you would smile and say, "What a warm-hearted person this guy is." And sometimes you see someone and you just know that there's something special about them or something charming that really attracts you to them on a positive level. And the facial structure certainly had that. And I've drawn several sketches, not just of the various symbological uh, the various symbols that I received telepathically, but also of my encounter. And I have about 3 composition notebooks of drawings of the gentleman, of the various symbols that I'm not releasing publicly and not showing to just anyone, but people that have a expertise in symbology, If they were to get in touch with me or try to contact me, I would be more than happy to show some of the work to them. I don't want to put these out publicly for one reason, because I don't want to release something that is not 100% finished or 100% accurate, because I think that these symbols have immense value, and I don't want to degrade the value of what they could mean. So,
Just before you move on to the symbols, I just wanted to get back to him for a minute.
mhm,
His physical body, did he
mhm.
appear larger than the average human, or the typical male size? Was he very slender? Was he well built?
Very long arms, very long legs, very tall, very skinny, but not skinny to the sense where you would think of a person as skin and bones. Skinny in the sense of what perhaps a swimmer would look like. Very lean. The arms were long, but it wasn't a abnormal length in the arms or legs. It wasn't such where, had this person been waiting in line at the post office behind you, you would think to yourself, how strange. You would think to yourself, wow, a very tall, a very well built looking gentleman. So there wasn't any irregular physical trait or attribute that this gentleman had, but it was definitely a very healthy looking person that, like I said, if you see at the post office, you'd think, wow, what a charming looking man. If he starts a conversation with me, I may be inclined to, respond back pleasantly. So
Okay.
there wasn't any fin, there wasn't a tail, there wasn't, he wasn't a cyclops like we, see in the movies. It was a very pleasant looking gentleman and a pleasant experience. And I didn't have any fear. I didn't have any fear. There wasn't a sense of being a place I didn't want to be. There wasn't a sense of being there against my will. It was really as if I had gone back home, and really as if I had gone to the place that I belong. And when the initial event happened where I did see this gentleman, as I mentioned before, with only my eyes, of course, I don't have my physical body in this realm. This gentleman placed his finger on where, uh, from the area that I could see. Now, he didn't physically touch me because I was still in my aura zone, but in the area in which I had my sight. And, we mentioned earlier that was probably the only thing that you could define as what I was my sight and my thinking. And the symbolism and the communication started there. I could still think the way that I'm thinking now, and that's
Sorry,
how I
can you
communicate.
just, sorry, can I ask you to back up? He put his finger where? What, the
He,
equivalent of your forehead or something?
pardon me, Lisa?
Was it like the equivalent of where your forehead would have been?
No, 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 not my forehead, my sight, the place that I was seeing from.
Okay.
So it was as though somebody would place his finger on your eyeball, but both of your eyeballs simultaneously. And so imagine if you just had one eye, or were just looking from one eye, and someone placed their finger right directly on that eye, but you didn't feel irritated, you didn't feel irregular, you didn't feel uncomfortable as you would if someone would do that here.
Okay.
So so
And as soon as that contact was made, the symbols started to come in.
yes, yes, exactly. And as I mentioned, the symbols were how he would communicate with me. And had I been shown these various symbols on an earth realm, I would look at them and I would think to myself, well, that's pretty interesting. And, that's kind of neat. What is that? Abstract art? Is that, something from the pyramids? I wouldn't know out of my ignorance, but in
Was there
that perspective,
anything that was familiar to you from the 3D realm?
I mean, the symbols were so profoundly complex that if I look at it from the 3D realm, you're gonna find bits and pieces that resemble something, just because there was so many different layers and so much, profoundness to them. As I mentioned in my last interview, the gentleman asked me the same question, but he was more specific. He said, was there any Nazi symbolism or swastikas in the symbols that this gentleman was, sending you when you were deciphering? And I said, there were swastikas, but they were not, pardon me, excuse me, they were not just swastikas shown by themselves. They were interlayered in different shapes, in different formations, in different formalities. But you could see the swastika shape here, or you could see it intermingling with the different shapes. So a lot of the sketches that I have, and as I said, I have about 3 composition notebooks encountering what happened that night, have things that you would find on this planet today, but the vast majority of them are completely foreign. The vast majority of them are unusual and unearthly.
But at the time, as you were receiving them, you intuitively, from that perspective, understood the meaning of most of them.
Exactly. Intuitively, not from a 3-dimensional educational standpoint, but completely intuitively, I understood them. And
have you been able to bring back that memory and that knowledge with you from this experience?
I have been able to bring back that memory and that knowledge, but not all of it. And that's why I'm doing my best to write them down and show them to people who may have had similar experiences, show them to various members of the symbology community. And I hope that if there's anyone listening that does have a background in symbology, they'll try to get in touch with me, because I'm open for all opinions. I'm open for all perspectives. And, I want to hear what different people have to say about these various symbols, because I do not want to misinterpret any of them. And even though at the time I had a very full, profound understanding of most of them, now that I'm back on this perspective, on this realm, I want to make sure that they're as accurate as possible, especially if I start expressing what they meant. So
well, that's
I do
assuming
have...
we haven't misinterpreted them in the past as well, I suppose.
Good point. But yeah, I firmly believe that they're profoundly important. And, so if there's anyone listening that has a background in ancient symbology, I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Okay, great. Well, they can get in touch with me and I'll forward them on to you.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
So I heard you say that you are concerned. You are concerned for us, that you are fearful to a degree, and that we are in a fight. So who are we fighting with? What are you fearful of?
Well, the fear element is an element that I'm still battling. I know that by even using that word and allowing that energy to operate, I'm already contributing to the negativity. But that's the constant battle that we have, going back to the beginning of our conversation, between the higher consciousness, as you put it, and the matrix, as I put it. So I try to stay away from that perspective, as hard as it is, feeling what I feel and knowing what I know and believing what I believe. So I really don't like to advocate fear. I don't like to speak from the perspective of fear, because I do believe that there is hope. And I do believe that if we operate on hope and operate on love, we do affect the future from that perspective. Now, what are we fighting? That was your question. And first of all, before we get into the external influences, which I'll get into in a little bit, we are fighting with ourselves. We're fighting with our own lies. We're fighting with our own deception. And we're fighting with our own perspective. So in order to put the battle cosmically, we have to first cool things down on this realm. Otherwise, if we're distracted by the things that are happening on this realm, there's no legitimate chance that we could connect cosmically and win what has to be won on that realm, if that makes sense. So there's really 2 elements to what we have to battle and win. There's the secular perspective and there's the cosmic perspective. From the secular standpoint, we're dealing with ego. We have to battle our ego every single day. And we have to battle the desires that the reptilian brain, that the reptilian stem throws on people on a daily basis. We have to battle with the choice of doing good and bad to our fellow man. We have to deal with whether or not we want to continue to go on the path we're on or not. On that secular level, we can go on and on and on and on and on for 10 days and talk about what needs to be done. But on a cosmic level, there is a combination of what I believe to be white hats and black hats. And really, that's just a way of saying good and evil, yin and yang. And this cosmic interference that's going on does affect us not only physically, but spiritually. And first, it affects us spiritually, and second, it affects us on a physical realm, as we discussed earlier, how this matrix is manifesting all that negativity the way that it knows how to, which is by losing jobs and losing homes and being out of work and losing people are losing their minds, really. And there are different races that do exist, that do have a serious impact on us and our planet, and have been impacting this planet for a long time, and are currently impacting it and will impact its future, especially its near future, in a profound way. Now, when I use that term races, am I referring to the Russians? Am I referring to the Chinese? Am I referring to the Indians? I'm not referring to any of that. I don't see a race on this planet other than the human race. What I'm referring to races are, as you eloquently put it, extraterrestrials, which is how they describe themselves to others. What I encountered, I don't believe was a extraterrestrial. What I believe I encountered was one of our ancestors. And I think that there's a fundamental difference between extraterrestrial communication and members of your past guests that you said spoke with entities that referred to themselves as extraterrestrials. And my experience and others like me, I believe that the entity that communicated with me was just as human as me, just as human as you. I think that the way that they communicated was such that even us as human beings can achieve if we line up into that level of spiritual maturity, that level of consciousness. So
just
there.
to sum up a little bit, if I
Mhm,
make sure I'm on the same page as you,
mhm,
the Elohim
mhm,
are our ancestors. Is that
mhm.
another way? Is either another way of saying, or is this a completely different thing?
You have.
They are the were they did they participate in the creation of the human race that is here?
Mhm, mhm. You're absolutely correct with your interpretation, and that's exactly what direction I'm headed towards. They are our. Now, I don't want to use the term God or entities that we should submit to, but they did have a direct influence on life on this planet, and they did have a direct influence on us as a race. And that does not mean, though, pardon me, that does not mean that they are separate than us. So when we talk about the Elohim and we sit and we say, so the Elohim created human beings on the planet, correct? And I respond back by saying correct. Initially, people may have the perspective of, okay, so therefore the Elohim, technically speaking, since they created the humans, are our gods or are leaders, and that is not true either, because they are us. Even though they had a direct responsibility, as I think is the proper way to put it, in
More parents than gods?
guardians, I think, and parents is
Guardians?
another way of putting it. Yes, I don't believe that they desired to be submitted to. I don't believe that they ever asked to be worshipped. I think that the submission that humans have done to them historically has been based on the misunderstanding that human beings had of them. And going back to what we spoke about earlier, how people will believe what they want to believe, I think that it was a very comforting feeling for people that were on this planet thousands of years ago to think that these visitors are gods. And I think that that idea has been implanted, and that belief has been implanted based on humans' own will on themselves, when fundamentally these entities came back then and shared knowledge and shared technology and shared a greater meaning to life and a greater, more cosmic awareness. And instead, that was misinterpreted. And I
So,
really.
sorry, I just want to go back a bit. They they participated in the creation of humanity here on this planet and then left and
Mhm.
then have visited us periodically.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Not periodically, but continuously and consistently. And the fact of the matter is, if we go through history, both recent and ancient, you're going to find elements of them that have always been around. The issue, of course, is that they have cosmic enemies and they have a cosmic battle that they must face. And therefore, since they are us, we have to face the same cosmic interference and the same cosmic battles. So even though they are acting as parents, as you put it, guardians, as I put it, the battle is such where they have to continue to act as our guardians. Otherwise, there will be a cease to us as human beings. Because, as I mentioned earlier, there's not only one race; there are multiple races,
Mm.
and there is a cosmic. The way that we would put it on human terms is there's a cosmic political uh, arena that we simply do not know anything about because.
Well, let's use the common language that's out there in the alternative
Mhm,
conspiracy world. Are we
mhm.
talking about a battle between the Elohim and the reptilians?
Well, that's definitely one way you could look at it, and I'm glad you brought that up because it comforts me to know that I don't have to explain all those aspects to it. But the reptilians also did have a say in the genetical code that we see in human beings today. And the Elohim initially produced something that was much different than what we have today. And the original creation was so magnificent that there was no um, desire to kill and no desire to destroy that we have today. What we call the reptilian stem in the brain, which can be traced back as the most one of the most ancient aspects of our origin, I believe, based on the symbolism that I saw, based on my understanding of my experience and the symbolism that I saw and the historical symbolism that was shown to me and my understanding of it at that time, is a interference, is a genetic chip, is probably the best way I could put it. And this genetic chip has been keeping the consciousness of humanity strapped on its feet. Now, you cannot simply cut this part of the brain out and survive, as it's been very carefully implanted in our genetic code. But there are ways around it, and there are ways that you can still exist with this inside of us, despite the fact that it's trying to tame us into slavery. By achieving the cosmic awareness and higher consciousness, you can overcome these evil, uh, demonic desires that all human beings have, whether they admit it or not, because it's in our genetic structure from that microchip. You can achieve higher awareness despite that. And that is why, even though they have affected us on a genetic level, they still have to affect us on a global level, on a matrix level, by destroying the banking systems, by causing these wars, by making these sacrifices, by having so much death and unhuman, uncompassionate things happen on this planet, that instead of feeding the natural side of us, they're feeding the unnatural, manipulated side of us. So, therefore, humans can either choose to feed the reptilian aspect of what they implanted in us and continue to feed that unearthly bound of themselves, or they can feed the alternative, which is the Elohim standpoint, which is the origin, which is the original. So that's my perspective on it.
Well, I think you've actually explained very well my perspective on it, because I've been sort of saying for a while now that that part of us is our plug into the
Exactly.
matrix. Well, it's
And
like plugging your controller of your into your Xbox.
you're absolutely right, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it's comforting to know that there are others out there, such as yourself, that have been on their own journey and have had their own understanding of their journey and reached the same conclusion that I have recently reached. So it's good.
You're
It's
not
good to
alone.
hear.
There's many of us out there.
And like I said, I think that's the only hope that we really have. People like you, people who are listening to my voice, wherever in the world that they may be, they have to understand that their importance is vital. Their importance is beyond words. And even if they can help save one soul, I truly, truly, truly believe that if you can help illuminate one soul, one single soul, one single person, it's the equivalent of saving all of humanity. So I fundamentally believe that. So I stress the importance of helping your fellow man, to all those that can hear my voice, and I applaud what you do with your show.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty. We've got a
Hmm.
cosmic battle going on that's been going on for eons potentially between
Hmm.
the Elohim and, at the very least, the reptilians. They
Hmm.
they both have a vested interest in humanity for
Hmm.
different reasons,
Hmm.
with different agendas perhaps.
Hmm.
Um, so bail me up when I'm wrong, or if I
Hmm.
go off track. Um, but but are we about to see this battle come to Earth? Are we about to see it manifest here in 3D?
Well, you're not wrong. You're completely right. And you have brushed upon something that is uh, a little scary for most people. But first of all, I want to say this about whether or not it's going to come to the 3D realm or not. I'm amongst the crowd that believe that it will not happen this year. Now, I know there's a tremendous amount of information out there, and a tremendous amount of communicators, and a tremendous amount of belief that this three-dimensional manifestation of the cosmic battle will happen this year. I believe that that's not going to happen. I stand by my belief, and I encourage those listening to also tap into that mindset that it's not going to happen this year.
What's led you to that belief though?
Well, when I was shown the various symbols and I was interpreting them at that time, part of this process included a large amount of the fundamentals of history, present, and future. And amongst that experience, I saw at one position, at one point, we as human beings on this planet eventually do develop into the cosmic aware beings that that the visitor that I communicated with was, and we are no longer strapped in the chains of slavery with the reptilian stem, or with the same level of matrix vision that exists. We, in other words, do become enlightened beings in the future. And in addition to that, I'll go a step further and say exactly what the Elohim were to us as guardians and as inventors. We become to future farms on other planets. So
That
the
sounds like
human,
something that's a long way off in the future, not something that's in our lifetime.
yes, yes. But the point I'm making is, in order for that to be possible in the future, we will not cease to exist in our lifetime. So if we do cease to exist, what I believe will happen in the future would not have been shown to me. That's why I have optimism and I have hope, and I don't believe that right now is a time to strap into fear. I don't believe that there's going to be any event that is going to shock the planet or any event that is going to flip the world upside down at once. I believe that that is actually already happening, but it's happening piece by piece, bit by bit. And as it's happening piece by piece, bit by bit, consequently, there's also large pieces and bits of awakening going on. And I think that's going to be set into hyperdrive, but it's not going to happen overnight in one particular date on one particular um, moment. I think.
I have to say something though, because
Mhm,
this is new to you, really. I mean,
mhm,
a couple of months
mhm,
now. There are people, and I'm one of them,
mhm,
but there are people who have been down this road most
mhm,
of their lives,
mhm,
20, 30, 40, 50
mhm,
years even,
mhm,
and they are well aware of where we're at,
mhm,
what we face, and honestly, they're exhausted. They're tired.
mhm,
They want it
mhm,
done, and
mhm,
they've been fighting the good fight.
mhm,
And the idea that this is going to be a long, slow, piece by piece
mhm,
process is going to, well, I'll say, be disheartening, to
mhm,
put it very mildly.
mhm,
You know, there are some of us who are we want that earth shattering, earth flipping, mind opening event
mhm,
that will wake everybody up,
mhm,
in one
mhm.
go, and let's get on with it.
I want to first off say that I completely empathize and understand that perspective, even though this is a very new journey for me. I have to submit myself to respect for those that have been on the playing field and the battlefield for decades, literally decades. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for those people. And I hold my personal opinion that although there will eventually be this, as you like to put it, earth shattering event that will flip the world upside down, it's not going to come in the form of public understanding, meaning that that does happen, and I, by the way, don't think it'll happen this year. When that does happen, even though it's going to happen, most people won't even realize what's really going on. So the notion that there's going to be a mothership come on the planet and therefore people cannot deny the fact that there are different races that exist cosmically because we have reptilians coming from this ship and speaking and talking and now it's undeniable, I believe is not going to happen. And I'm sorry for those who do want such a thing to happen. And like I said, they have their opinion that I respect 100% and I appreciate because I know that their opinion and their work comes from a good heart and a good place, and I have mine. I believe that something as powerful as that will happen, but it will happen in disguise. And it will happen in a way where only those that can really see what's going on will see what's going on. So, if we're going to talk about something earth shattering that'll wake up the common man, I don't see that coming. I don't think that the common man will simply awake based on a event unless that event is someone like you or someone that's listening to this program will try to ignite what's going on, or if a spontaneous event occurs, which is what happened to me, which really happened because my ancient self was awakening. And I think that more and more cases like that will happen. But other than that, I don't see a massive, uh, you know,
But it could happen
you.
like that. It could happen that, you know, more and more and more people, vast numbers of people, have a
Mhm.
personal experience like you did.
And I do think that, that's happening right now, and I think that as time goes by, it will get into overdrive. But I just don't think it'll happen on one particular date, Lisa. That's
Oh
just
no, I don't think that
something.
either. No.
Yeah, I just don't think that we're gonna wake up December 22nd and all of a sudden realize how our neighbors, the Johnsons, are illuminated. I just think that it's gonna happen, piece by piece, bit by bit, and the pieces and pieces and bits by bit will get larger and larger as this time is in hyperdrive. And, to those that are exhausted, to those that are, sick and tired of being sick and tired, I submit to you, please stay on the path and stay encouraged and do not submit yourself to any sort of, negativity, or do not give up, because these times are very exciting times. And be blessed for not only being alive, but be blessed for having the vision to see what's going on, first of all. Because if you're alive right now and you see what's going on, consider yourself to be immensely lucky and immensely blessed, because these are magnificent times to be lucid in.
Well, whether it's the Elohim or I don't even know how to pronounce this properly, Quetzalcoatl,
Mm-hmm.
or any one of a number of different entities or races are
Mm-hmm.
prophesized to return at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So, did they give you any or did he give you any information to suggest that now is the time of their return, that they are going to come back? And if so, in what way, in what fashion?
The time is near. It's not going to be this year, and I don't have any dates that I can give you. And
No
I don't
ballparks?
have ballpark. I think that, well, I do think that Lisa will be around to see it. If that's really, if you want to get to the meat and bones of the matter, I do think you'll be around to see it. Um, Now, like I said, though, the return per se is not going to come in the form of public understanding of it. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people misunderstand I'm talking about a return. We're not talking about what we see in movies and a big mothership comes, and then a man comes from the mothership and asks the citizen on the sidewalk, take me to your leader. And then they're going to go on Washington DC, and there's cameras, and then we see a extraterrestrial on C-SPAN, and then extraterrestrials want a place in the legislation. It's not going to be public like that. It's going to be something that only those that are illuminated will be able to perceive and see what's going on. I firmly believe that. I firmly think that the process is starting. I think that more and more of these experiences are going to occur and happen. But fundamentally speaking, the more important thing is, yes, this is very important to be aware of, but how are we as human beings going to um, be affected by these changes? Are we going to tap into that ancient part of ourself? Are we going to minimize the reptilian stem and achieve higher consciousness so our aura can shine and be understanding of what's happening? Or are we just going to stay in a primitive notion? Even if we do have these kind of cosmic guardians, we do have responsibility here, each as individuals, first of all, and secondly, collectively. So that's the point that I'm really emphasizing and trying to get out there as much as I can, is that every single person that's listening to my voice has an immense amount of power, more than they know, and they have an immense history. And all they need to do is tap into it as if they're turning on a switch in the room. It's really that simple. You just have to turn on that switch and, you know, not believe that it's difficult, not believe that it's hard. It's a fundamentally easy thing to do. And once that switch is on, everything else kind of aligns in the right place for you as an individual.
You did say that in one of your earlier interviews that no one is originally from this universe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. We have origin and creation that is not from this universe, that has originated from the Elohim, and the Elohim are a cosmic, a cosmic race that not only exists on this universe, but they have a deep origin from multiple universes. Therefore, if we look at it from the perspective that we came from them and we essentially are them, I don't believe that we can be limited to just this particular universe. And
Well,
um,
what's your thought on reincarnation then?
Well, reincarnation is not something that happens in the sense that we die and then we become a fly on the wall that gets swatted and then we become a rat. I personally don't believe that um, we reincarnate as unconscious beings. I believe that uh, we have a say in the matter. I believe that there's an unconscious choice, and I believe that it's a combination of choice and a destiny that is given to us as what we would refer to as God with a capital G. And the
I'll give you
different.
my perspective because I've had a couple of experiences of my own that have given me some insights that feel true to me, and I want to get your perspective on it. That reincarnation as we know it, in that we live lifetime after lifetime after lifetime as a human being on this planet over and over and over again, is actually not the natural order of things. That we, the natural order of things would be to choose to experience an incarnation anywhere, on any planet, in any universe, as any race. But we have a specific origin of who we essentially are at a soul level. But that the reincarnation that we've been, certainly the Buddhist sort of idea of reincarnation is actually part of the matrix trap, that we've been caught in a cycle, a rinse and repeat cycle, that has been manipulated by this reptilian agenda. And it's why we have, in fact, devolved so dramatically over the last several thousand years. It's because every time we go through the program gets stronger.
I think that you are coming from a very, very accurate perspective, and we are devolving. And there's a lot of people who exist on this planet that think we evolved from chimps. And I submit to you that it's more accurate that most human beings are evolving into chimps the way that it's going.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah.
Now, I have to differ with you on one point, though, Lisa, if I may.
Sure.
90% of what you said I stand by fully, except for the aspect of we as human beings, while we're in the process of incarnating, we as souls rather, while we're in the process of reincarnating, have a say in the race and have a say in the position and have a say in the matter. I believe that that is true. We have a say, but we don't have a full choice. I believe that ultimately the choice lies between our desire and our deeds and our connection to the universe, our connection to God with the capital G, on a scientific level, our connection to our subliminal mind, whatever term you want to use. I'm going to use the term universe because most people will probably resonate with that. But it's not a fundamental 100% choice. I think that
No, I think that's fair to say.
Yes, I believe that it's a combination of desire and destiny. So,
Yes, another way of putting it for me would be to say where we can best serve and grow God, perhaps.
yes, yes, yes. So, if we want to talk about it from a 3D point, you can choose where you want to apply for when you're looking for a job, but you can't choose if you get hired or not. But you do have a choice in where you apply for. And I think that that's probably the more accurate way to describe what I believe really lies in reincarnation. Ultimately, though, I firmly believe that it's not up to me, it's not up to you, it's not up to anyone that's listening. Ultimately, though, it's up to the boss. That's how I see it.
And the current cycle of reincarnation that we're in, do you think that perhaps it could in fact be a trap in the matrix?
Well, there's always been an element of trap, not only in this current cycle, but other cycles, because we're not the only this isn't the only time in history that there's been a battle. There's not the only time in history, or this isn't the only universe that's facing these same issues. This is something that has been around a long time and will be around a long time. We're just a fragment of consciousness that's awakening to it. So yes, I do believe that, but it's not exclusively for us. It's something that is something that is occurring even simultaneously right now on multiple dimensions. So it's something that is in the process right now, but it's not exclusive for us. We can't think of ourselves as unfortunate victims because past, present, and future is still has fragments of what's going on. But in this particular cycle that we're in, I do believe that there's going to be a period to come that is going to be more on the side of light matter than dark matter. It's just we do have to go through a very vicious final chapter, a 12th hour, if you will, until we see that new day coming.
What do you think that 12th hour looks like?
From what perspective, Lisa?
From the 3D in our lives.
From the 3D perspective is a perspective that is going to be very frightening, and for a lot of people, it's going to be too much to handle. From a cosmic perspective, which is the perspective I like to operate on, it's going to be for the greater good, and it's going to be a very pleasant outcome. Now, from the 3D perspective, if we're going to talk about the perspective of the Johnsons down the street who have no idea in the world what this conversation even is referring to, who listen to this conversation online and think it's just poppycock, from the Johnsons' perspective, it's going to be too much for the mind to handle. And I have to just submit to you a very simple word. And all I can really say is that their minds will just pop. That's really the only thing that'll happen is, there's no profound word to describe it other than to just simply say that their minds will just pop, P-O-P. That's what will happen for a lot of entities on here on this planet right now because they were so addicted and so in love with the Matrix and how it treated them, that now that we're going into this time that even the Matrix is losing its ability to sustain itself.
But is it going to be physical events
Absolutely.
that they just can't get their minds around? And
I mean, Lisa, I would submit to you that today it's happening right now as we speak. We're in the, all we need to do is stick our head out the window and look around. I don't think that it's something that needs to be forecasted by or something that needs to be prophesized by. I think it's something that you read about every single day right now.
But you and I both know there are people out there who think that it's, same old on planet Earth.
And that's the challenge that we have as truth seekers and truth spreaders to try to give hope to those who we see as walking down that path of, they're just walking off that mountain. And if we don't stop them soon, they're just going to walk and then they're not even going to realize that they're walking on a mountain. They're going to think that they're walking on the ground. And they're just going to walk and, whistle and chew their bubble gum and have their headphones on and everything is nice and dandy. Yeah, you're walking, you're having a good time, enjoying the weather. And then, you're walking and you don't look ahead of you. And then all of a sudden you fall down, 6,000 feet to the ground and you're smashed. And then, in your last moments, you think to yourself, wow, there were people that were trying to tell me that this is a mountain. There were people that were trying to tell me that this isn't a physical piece of land, but in fact a mountain, and I wasn't listening. So I think that it's our duty to try to remind them that there's a mountain going on and, try to prove to them that they're walking towards a edge of a cliff or of a mountain.
I do like to get practical. So let's imagine you're trying to talk to the old Ashwin. What do you tell him? What would you tell him about what is about to happen and how to get through it?
Old Ashwin would have responded back with laughter and
Let's assume for a minute that he's going to humor you, and he'll hear you out. What do you tell him?
you tell him that, well, first of all, you have to operate on their realm. Otherwise, you can't even get through them in the first place. So you have to operate on their realm and be there on the primitive level and show yourself as being there on the primitive level. Otherwise, you can't get through to them in period. So you have to be very slow. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my family, as we mentioned earlier. I made the mistake early on of going all out, and it really worried them. So I would have probably done a little differently. If I could go back to a little bit of recent history, I probably would have gone very slow. I would have asked questions more than I gave information, because I think the key is to ask the right questions, not necessarily present them with information, but let that seed of curiosity for the truth, or let that seed of understanding the bigger picture be implanted internally by them. And I think that the key is not to submit to them information, because like we said earlier in this interview, people will believe what they want to believe. So you have to make them want to see more than they can only see. So I would ask a lot of questions. I would say, so Ashwin, what do you think this is all about? Where do you think we came from? What are we doing here? And every answer that I would get, I would ask an even deeper question. What do you think the future is going to be? Why do you think all this is happening on the planet? Why do you think, people are going crazy and losing everything, and wars are happening, and there's all this craziness and insanity? Why do you think there is all this insanity? And hopefully the right questions are the thing that would help, rather than just submitting information. I think the key is to ask the right questions.
Okay, so let's assume you're talking to someone who is very similar to who you were, in terms of they're in college, they're striving for a degree in something that is, that'll get them a high-paying corporate job in a year or two, so that they can buy a house they'll never actually own with pretend money that doesn't really exist. All of those things. What would you tell him about, in terms of a practical sense of what kind of life to start looking towards creating for himself, and maybe take focus off that, and these are the things that are going to be important?
Well, I would firstly say that you have to be very careful about how you approach it, because it's very sensitive regard when we're talking about enlightening someone with that particular matter, because they're operating from an ego that they've worked on their whole life, and they're operating on things that they have seen as being important their whole life. So if you come one day and you say, "Hi, Mark," and Mark says, "Hi, Lisa, how are you?" And then Lisa says, "Oh, well, I just want to let you know that everything you've worked for your whole life, and every dollar you have, and everything you own, and everything that you spent your awakening day for achieving, and everything that you provided for your family is just a bunch of nonsense, and you're wasting your life. Have a good day." Mark is gonna say, "Wow, I really don't like Lisa at all."
Well, I
No
wouldn't
matter.
put it quite like that.
So, so I think you have to, like, going back to what I said earlier, you just have to operate from their perspective. How do they see things? And try to squeeze as much truth as you can from their understanding of the world, and ask the right questions. But is there a manual? Is there a script? Is there a one glove fits all way and a secret code that you can just whisper in someone's ear to get them to awaken? Absolutely not. It's such a challenge. And I think that's why, as you mentioned, so many people are so exhausted and just want it to be over, and just want something to happen that'll take the burden off their shoulders, and just please have one magnificent, big, huge thing happen, so I don't have to worry about all these people anymore, and I can, focus on self-development and self-understanding. But I really think that that's a big challenge, and there's no How to Illuminate Your Neighbor for Dummies book on the market. It really,
Or maybe you could write one. Maybe that's.
I wish I could. Even, I can't. Even I can't, or you can. I don't think anyone can. I think it really is a case by case matter, and
No.
you have to just if I were to emphasize any key points, I would say take every case with the utmost delicacy, take every case with the utmost patience, and take every case with the utmost understanding. Because if you don't have patience, especially, you're gonna lose it. If you don't have understanding, you're gonna lose it. And of course, you just have to have a lot of empathy in that situation.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's definitely a challenge, though, Lisa. I wholeheartedly am understandable with that regard. It really is a difficult thing to do,
It
without a
would.
shadow
I
of a
can't
doubt.
say. I mean, I have to say that it still would be nice to have an event so that you didn't have to try and keep repeating that we're living in special times. Let's at least get that. Let's at least get that understanding happening. You know.
I mean, it's yeah. I think if they see a big mothership, they would agree that at least they would agree that much that it's interesting times. But I think that if underdog wins a Super Bowl or a underdog basketball team wins a championship, it surprises and shocks the masses as much as anything these days. And I think that's just an unfortunate state. And it's funny that I would even say that because I used to be, the guy that would throw the Super Bowl party. I used to be the guy that would, spend a lot of my money to get courtside tickets. So it's ironic that in such a short period of time, I flipped to that perspective and I realize how that's just engaging in nonsense and just a waste of energy and a waste of time and the mind.
It's just all a distraction.
All just a distraction for the children and for the kids. And every once in a while to throw a president at a game or a prime minister at one of these games, so the cameraman and the media can say, look, here's your daddy, here's your father, he's joining the game with you children, isn't that sweet? And it's all just a disgusting show that is really fooling people, and people are eating it. And the thing that discourages me is how much the people that are in the Matrix love it. They love it. They're
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the show so much, and they can't get enough of it. And I was there a very short time ago, so I understand it. And looking back, it's something that I can totally understand where they're coming from. And it's not that they are not good meaning. It's just that they unfortunately have been lied to so much, and there hasn't been any of the right questions, and they don't have that desire deep down within to awaken. And
Do you
it,
believe
it's
that
a
everybody that's here right now is here because they chose to be here to
yes,
take the
yes,
opportunity to awaken?
yes. I believe. Well, no, I don't believe the second part. I do believe the first part. I believe that everybody that's alive here is alive because they chose to be here. But I don't believe that everyone is here because they chose to be here and because they chose to be awakened. I think that some dark energy did manifest itself here to keep as many people as they can aligned with being unawakened as well. So that's also something that we have to take into consideration. I don't think everyone is here for the greater good. I really don't believe that. I think that there is a combination, and it's up to us to decipher that combination and make the most of it.
So you have no doubts because you've been shown images of the future. Excuse me. That in regards to this battle, the good guys, the white hats, win.
Yes, no doubt about it. The good guys win. There's no chance that um, the evil will win. There's no chance that the evil will prevail. And there will be battles that will be lost. And there will be moments in which hope is something that is uh, very sparingly available to the minds and hearts. But at the end, all will be well. I know that for absolute fact. I know that at the end of the day, at the end of the chapter, there's only beauty, there's only love, and love is all truth. I can make sure that without a shadow of doubt, every single person listening to my voice, and I can promise them and I can give them my personal perspective my personal opinion, and truly what I know is that all will be well at the end. All will be well at the end. And I want to emphasize that, and I want to, make sure that people realize that and remind themselves of that. Because in these challenging and dire times, I know the hope is blurry and the future is blurry, but I submit to you that all will be well, and love is the answer, and love is really the only truth. And as long as you align yourself on that realm, all will be well.
Nice message. Thank you.
It's the truth, Lisa. It's just the simple truth. And I appreciate you inviting me on, and I hope that you don't get exhausted. I hope that um,
I have my moments. Before we go though, I do want to ask you one thing. This event that took place on
Mhm,
March 27,
mhm.
was it a single event, or have you had ongoing contact, or?
It was a single event, and I believe that there will be more communication for me. I don't know when, because I know that there was much more that could have been shown to me, but I believe that there was a sense that I personally was not ready for it all. So I'm still on the journey, I'm still developing, and I believe when I am ready, there will be more shown to me. And as my window continues to get wider and wider, there will probably be more experiences for me in the future. But other than that one event, nothing has happened that was similar to that period.
Have you found that you've come back from that event with any heightened ability, or can you do anything you couldn't before in terms of, um, oh, I guess the broadest term is like psychic abilities or something like that?
Yes and no. No, in the sense that it's not like watching a X-Men movie where all of a sudden I can heal the sick or I can fly or none of that stuff. But yes, in the sense that I believe that there was an element of magic, and of course supernatural uh, perspective to my experience, solely based on the fact that I went from who I was to what I am today. And every day, people who I used to know who talk to me say that everything about the way I talk, the way that I go about things is so fundamentally different. And everything about me as a person changed and really transformed. So, from that perspective, I think that it's fair to say that there is something profound about that, but nothing in the likes of, you know, what we would think of as special powers or a special ability. No, but I do think that
Or even if it's
you
as
can,
subtle as being more, more empathic or more intuitive.
yes, those things, no doubt about it. My intuitive um, nature went from about 0% to about 100%. I
Hmm.
find myself really able to get either a warm feeling or get either a cold feeling when I encounter people. I get a instinctual energy and different presence from people. I don't see different things. I don't see colors. I don't see anything abnormal, but I get intuitive feelings of good and evil. Whereas before I was completely naive to who I would let into my life and who I would call my so-called friends. As now later I found out how naive I was, as my so-called friends of years are now mocking me and making fun of me and essentially spitting on me, although not physically, metaphorically speaking. Now I would never allow that kind of energy to be in my life because I can decipher the energy.
Hmm.
But nothing that I can see that's different. Only feelings and intuitive ability to sense. But as far as psychic ability of reading thoughts, no. As far as the ability to be telepathic, like they were with me, no. Just the ability to get a feeling and get a sense has been profoundly enhanced by this experience.
It might be it might be helpful to you to check out Michael Monk. the Avatar Energy Master. I did do an interview with him. You can find it on my website, because it feels to me that you probably have come back from this experience with a lot more than you're even aware of as yet, and you just need to work it.
I would be more than happy to check that gentleman out or anyone else out there that wants to communicate with me. I don't have a website, unfortunately. I haven't been able to set one up, and hopefully in the near future I'll get something with regards to that. But right now I've just been so busy wrapping my head around everything that I haven't had time to set any of that stuff up. I do have an email though. If there's anyone out there that wants to get in touch with me, again, I apologize. It's not a professional email. It's not, anything fancy, but for now it'll get the job done. They can simply contact me at ashwinfarinacci@hotmail.com, and they can find me on Facebook. I have a profile there. You just search Ashwin Farinacci, and basically if anyone wants to get in touch with me, they can either email me and I'll be sure to respond back, or they can add me on Facebook. But I don't have a website or anything like that. Maybe in the future someone will help me out with that, or maybe not. I don't really think there's a big need for one. But again, I just want to thank you again, Lisa, for having me on. I really enjoyed our conversation. It was such a joy to speak with you. I really get a wonderful, wonderful feeling about you, and I appreciate you having me on. And any time in the future, if you want to continue this conversation, I'd be more than happy to.
Well, thank you, and I get a lovely feeling from you too. And it would be nice to speak with you again, and maybe even get you to participate in some, kind of round table discussions that I put together occasionally. So that would be fun too.
I think it would be very interesting, especially if there's other kinds of people that had similar experiences with a little bit of, a little bit of a different perspective. I would love to engage in such a thing. So I look forward to speaking with you in the future, and I want to thank you and your audience again.
Thank you very much.